now.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Carrie, can you take the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Cade,
He's running a little late, but he will be here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly, Commissioner Oakes,
Here.
Commissioner Ertley,
Here?
Commissioner Schreiber,
Here.
Commissioner Sloan Buchanan.
Also connected.
Great. Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is public and employee comments, and we have AC Tenhupen would like to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd just like to take this time. Lowe's has a program known as Hometown and Hometown Heroes. And they went ahead, Dawn specifically, who's here today to represent Lowe's, reached out to our department to see if we were interested in basically participating in that program as a benefactor. So I'm just going to read this because I didn't memorize it on the line. But so Lowe's Hometowns restores and revitalizes spaces that serve as hubs and heartbeats of communities, including parks, community centers, gardens, safe and affordable housing, first responder facilities, and programs serving veterans. So it's a nationwide program. They go all over, and then locally they also have some smaller projects that they do. So in a relationship that we have with Lowe's, between Dawn and this department, started back with Darren Reed. If you remember, during COVID, Darren Reed, who was a former community resource paramedic in North County Fire, played a big role in setting up the COVID vaccination and testing facility. And Lowe's played a big part in that, and that's kind of how the relationship started. And because we have a Lowe's in our first due area, Dawn reached out to our department to see if we were interested in this program. So what they offered was a revamp of our kitchen area here and upstairs in the cruise quarters. So the Lowe's program, in addition to giving us or expending some funds to provide some of this gear. So so you know, we have one refrigerator, 2 gas stoves, 2 microwaves, 2 dishwashers, a new kitchen sink with an InSinkErator, a countertop and cabinet along this wall here, which is brand new. And in addition to that, which is over $7,500 worth of materials, they bring in their own labor and their own time. So they have employees that devote their own time to this program as well. And Dawn was here with 3 of her colleagues, and they spent all day installing the cabinets, the countertop, cutting the sink area out to make sure it fits perfectly, and setting it all up. So it was very much appreciated, and the crews are already benefiting from it. So on behalf of the Board of Commissioners and the Fire Chief, I'd like to come up here and formally thank you, and it's much appreciated. We're going to go ahead and give you a little certificate. And then we're also going to give you what we call a challenge coin, which started in the U.S. Army back in the 80s. And now it's permeated throughout all of corporate America, I think, and the fire service. So here you go. There you go. And then if I catch you in the bar, I'll ask for that. If you don't have it for me, you owe me a beer.
Oh, dang.
That's how that works. Okay, so, and here's a certificate of appreciation. We'll just pretend like someone's taking a picture in Fairyland there.
Take a picture.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, Randy. Very nice.
So after the meeting, behind the black curtain, if you want to take a look at some of the new appliances and the work they did, please feel free to do so. Would you like to say anything?
It was an honor to come in and do this for.
Stand by here because you're on air.
Sorry. It was really an honor to come in and do this for you guys and for the crew. I couldn't think of when they asked me to spearhead this project. I couldn't actually think of a better place to do that. And so I reached out to Darren and asked if he had a contact, and it just kind of blew up from there after I got done scaring him, thinking I was selling him windows. It took a little bit to put it together, but we had a good group of people here, and we were able to knock it out in a day, which was really nice. So,
Very good.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to get out of here. I have an airplane to catch.
Okay, enjoy
Ooh,
your
nice.
vacation. Tennessee.
The next item on the agenda is the local 3438 report. Do we have a report?
We do.
Thank you, Greg.
It's going to start just a little bit of an introduction now that we're doing on YouTube. There's been some complaints that when people come up to talk, they're not introducing themselves and stuff. So, anyways, you guys all know me, but Greg Kuntz. So I'm the president of the 3 locals in the north end of the county, plus Camino Island, and then also the battalion chief of training for North County Regional Fire Authority. I'm here tonight to follow up on the last commissioners meeting and our request to solve the ongoing issues within the EMS division at our department. Shortly after the meeting, we were approached with a plan to create a temporary battalion chief of EMS position to kind of get us through to the promotional process. We had some conversation about that. It was good, but there's a little bit of some complications with it, in the fact that, obviously we have a little bit of a disagreement. What we would like to see is the battalion chief of EMS within the union to create that, and then also to have a medical services officer, EMS chief, whatever you want to call the position within the local. It's something that could solve the problem very quickly. We feel like that work is very similar to the work that I do. It's the quickest way to do it. There's, limited amount of bargaining that the union would be willing to move forward with to make that happen. We are committed to continue those talks, whether that's the outcome or we find another outcome. We were certainly hopeful that a memorandum of understanding could be reached. We weren't able to get there. Somewhat complicated by the fact that we're in the midst of contract negotiations, and any impact that any additional jobs or promotions would have on that, bargaining. So no blame placed on anyone, just in the midst of bargaining and trying to, can we ratify a contract? Do we have a temporary memorandum of understanding can complicate the issue. So I would just say, once again, we are committed to help solving this problem. I think it would be disingenuous of us not to find a solution. You guys, I don't know what happened in there, but certainly some movement was made. We need help. Just the other day, CRP Hickman contacted me. They need to put on an advanced airway class. It's really not his job to do that. I told him to just go ahead and move forward with it and pay some overtime for folks to come do it. So we want to work cooperatively with you to find a solution and get done with this. And I would just say, once again, from our standpoint, a battalion chief of EMS in the union, along with a medical services officer, is something that could be done in the quickest, most efficient manner to solve the problems for our folks, for the organization, and most importantly for the public. So I just wanted to say that and once again reinforce that, we're committed to this. We were happy at least to have some conversation about it, to start to move forward, to solve the problem. The person who was offered the director job and turned it down twice is in the local, would be willing to take the job. So we're just would love to have a solution quicker than later. And I'm not, that's not blame on anybody. It's just bargaining and all of those things. So I just wanted to say that tonight and know that we're moving forward and hopefully have a solution here sooner than later. So I'm happy to take any questions or
Does
comments.
anybody have any questions or comments for Greg? Well, thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate your
Yeah.
input.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Okay, before I call for approval of the agenda, there's another item that I'd like to allow time to discuss matters relating to labor negotiations pursuant to RCW 4230-140A. There is a motion to amend and add this item to the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carried. Okay, so, let's see.
Now the approval of the agenda.
Well, yes, I would like to, now that we have added that item to the agenda, we will ask for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Greg?
Second.
And Rick? Anyone opposed? All in
I
favor?
didn't catch the first.
It was Greg,
Thank you.
sorry. And Rick second.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries for the revised agenda. Next, we're going to move into an executive session. The board has planned an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-1101I to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to litigation. Okay. How much time do we need?
15 minutes?
15? Okay, we'll start with 15.
That always sounds really optimistic.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
Let's go with it, though. We can always
Okay,
extend.
that's right.
Yeah, we can't reduce it.
Yeah.
I just need a time.
He's
Hold on.
Oh,
Nashville spot. You're going to May?
I'll just wait till he says.
I'd love to go back.
Oh, no, oh, no,
Oh no,
sorry. Okay.
that scared me.
Sorry.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And direction has been given from our executive session. And I would ask now for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. The next item is our quarterly division presentation on Community Risk Reduction Report from AC Steve Goforth.
Good evening.
Good
Will my PowerPoint be up there?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't sure. I got it done pretty late, so I got it in there. So
You made it from the haunted house.
I did. I found my way out. So. It may be the last year of that haunted house. So everybody has the. Oh, okay.
My computer appears frozen. I'm working on it.
Oh, no worries. Does everybody have a copy of it? I
Yes.
can just go through.
Yep.
Should I
Yeah.
wait for those viewing from home or?
Just go for it.
Okay. Tonight I promised Dave it would be brief. First, I was just gonna quickly go over fire safety inspections. I've had a couple challenges this year with my the Windows laptops. I said RIP. They just they went to sleep and never got up. So that was what all my data was going into, so that the captains would have to electronically enter it. So I've been. We went back to paper, and for a little while there, I was like, this might be a thing here. But then, basically, they're filling it out by paper. I'm getting the paper, then I'm inputting the data, and it makes it pretty slow. So, but we've got the crews have done a great job. We kind of put emphasis on getting these inspections done quicker this year, so that I can wrap up the year with re-inspections and get next year's ready and go through it so that it can be more streamlined. A lot of these inspections, and you guys may know more than I do, but Streamline was kind of developed, and Mike set it up, and there was a lot of business licenses put in, and it was used for a little bit, but then we had COVID, so we've kind of been, every 6 months, a lot of occupancies change, so they're getting there, and we're getting all the data back up to date. So it's been a process, but I think next year they'll be even better. So the new iPads are being set up right now, and they will have Streamline on them, which is the inspection software. They are set up for First Due, but and so both of those will be on there. Right now, First Due is on the back burner until I can get inspections keyed up. Also, I've gone over things are going a lot better as far as whatever has happened with Arlington. We're working together with a lot more. I said synergy. I brought that back from the 90s here. Like we just came back. Today we had a combined inspection of a haunted house. That's Kevin and I walked it together. I also have been asked to do airport inspections, so I went and did some of those with Taylor and Monroe. So those are still in process, so I can't say that much about it. But it was interesting going there and talking with the airport, and those hangars out there were developed and built to be airplane hangars, and so anything other than an airplane hangar, I didn't just write up like an Yeah.
Oh, just the Arlington BESS. What is the acronym
Oh,
BESS?
Oh, that was battery energy storage systems.
Oh,
So
okay,
that was talking
okay.
about this synergy effect. It's like Arlington and I have been working on the storage unit, battery storage
Okay.
container place that's going to go on the microgrids. It's going to be a macrogrid.
Okay.
So we're working with Snowplow also. And I told him I was going next week. I'll be gone. I'll be going to the fire marshal's convention, so I can we can all get together and go over the same code problems, and I can get my points for CEs and see what the development is. So, but the battery energy storage system is a pretty hot topic. So I talked to Arlington and said, hey, I'm going next week. Do you want to share any information? And I didn't get anything back. So I called Snowish PUD and they sent me the whole thing. And so now Arlington wants to meet with me Thursday and we're going to just go over. So we just want to share the information as we go over, because there's a lot of people who are going to ask questions, because there's a lot of battery energy storage places, which is where they basically from the grid, they're going to hold it in these battery units until they need it and take it out of there. So another example is over in Stanwood, the No Meat Factory. There's Scott and I have been working together they've had some challenges in their process as far as coming over. It's a European group. They've bought everything, and there's a lot of ammonia they're working with, and it seems like we've had to slow them down a bit with the ammonia because we don't really want that released. I think you guys saw the other day when they were kind of playing with it, we had a hazmat team come out and evaluate what was going on, and they've moved away from playing with ammonia until they're ready with the rest of the project. So, but that may be slow on that if you guys are watching, because they also have to build a containment center or water treatment facility before they can discharge it into Stanwood's facility. So, because Stanwood's facility can't take the amount of water that they're going to be using. So, it's at least untreated. Again, I have some more airport inspections tomorrow. They have me going over there to some other hangars, and so these are group inspections. And then I have another, I call them code enforcement inspection with Kevin coming up on another place that's been there for a while, as far as they want to put something on the third floor of the American Legion Hall or something. So we're going together to go look at it. I think they figured out if you bring the fire marshal, that can help. Or they want me to agree with them, or at least they can make me the bad guy, which is actually kind of my job. So to say, give them challenging conversations. So at least with 103 in the code, I'm supposed to be able to do it without any political harassment. But so that'll work pretty good. Next, we've had some fires in the last few months, so I thought I'd go over fire investigations. It's there in the code as far as we do have the authority to investigate the cause, origins, circumstances of any fire, explosion, or other hazardous condition. We inspect the fires basically at first just to see if, also one of the things is see if there's a crime committed. With that, we bring law enforcement in, and as far as make sure we can do that, we also investigate to find the reason of the fire, because we can use that group that leads to better product testing, it leads to public education statements, and it's like we just try and learn from it so we don't encounter it again. And the code lets us go in for a certain amount of time to be able to do that. Through that, we use 921. Sometimes as an investigator now, everybody wants to know, well, what caused it? And because of 921 and which came out in 1992, it's a lot harder to just say this caused it, because in 92 resulted from an innocence project. I don't know if anybody's heard that. There was a Mr. Willingham in Texas was convicted of a fire that killed his daughters, and the reasons that they used were debunked fire cause theories, but that didn't come to light in the court. So before that, it was kind of OJT, and if you saw certain things like they said spalled concrete, that's arson. Or if you have a rainbow sheen in a puddle, well, that's an accelerant. That's arson. Hour dating, that's arson. Well, it was just like you see that, and it's arson. But that's not really how you go through and determine anything. They brought the science in to use the scientific method, so you can actually prove through science that these things happened. Unfortunately, this gentleman didn't get the benefit of that. So if you look at that, we just kind of go systematically through any decision process, recognize the need, define the problem, collect the data, analyze, develop a hypothesis. That's kind of what we do with everything I do. As far as what I do on inspections and everything I do is like I'm collecting data. We want to use that data to make decisions. Right now we're spread kind of thin, so I'm collecting the data, but you could say I can't I don't collect enough of it with enough time to analyze it. So that's part of what the problem I'm seeing, that we're finishing earlier this year. So maybe I can analyze some trends that we have there and move forward in a more efficient way. So, showcasing just, or bring to light a couple fires that happened in the third quarter. Arlington Hardware, that was a pretty popular one in social media, ended up being a ventilation fan. Luckily, someone was coming to work when they saw it, so we were able to get over there and put it out pretty quick. If you went inside that was the interesting part of the investigation. Is like it was a little fan motor. It was from 2001, so it lasted 30 years. So it's going to wear out. The bearing's shot, but behind that is an elevator shaft, so 3 stories down on a material lift to the basement. So there's actually some stuff in the retroactive code that we have 3 stories of unblocked shaft. You're supposed to close it in. So that would be something that's retroactive that maybe you would work with the code official. That's something you can act on if it's retroactively. It doesn't just have to happen when new construction. So you find that out. And also there was there's also from that, there's an apartment there. So go back to the code officials and say, that's existing non-conforming. Is there anything you want to do about it? So that's the piece where, I'll go through one more and then bring this other part. Still-Squamish Apartments there was actually really not a lot of information on that, but the Still-Squamish Apartments came in. They're fully sprinklered and fire alarmed. It came in as a fire alarm. This is what we had the Phoenix Award for, and ended up being 1 gallon apartment. It was a cooking fire. So you take the data there. That's the second leading cause, and I think the first leading cause for elderly adults. She was injured and burned, but the rest of the it was pretty good in the rest of the apartment from the water, and it didn't spread anywhere else. So I've had fires like that. If you're in the room with the fire, a lot of times you can still get hurt. It looked like she may have stamped down some burning material, and that's how she got burnt. But still, we saved sprinklers being in there. If you look at them, they're retroactively were put in there. That they definitely saved some lives. And also in this room, actually in this apartment building, one of our firefighters, Hanson, sent me an email when he was on a call in there, and there was a bunch of these sprinklers with the orange little packing clips on them. So somebody had gone in and done, so this is Zach, he goes in on a call and he sends me this picture of a sprinkler with the packing cap in it. So water's not going to come out of that thing. So I got a hold of the management, and they went through the rest of them. And it looks like the work was done 10 years ago. So they found 12 apartments with all of them with the packing stuff still in there. So, what if that would have been one of the apartments that she was in, would have had a plugged sprinkler head. So it's just going out there and inspecting. And that was just Zach having the idea from doing inspections, sent me that. And it's like, you're just trying to break the chain, right? I mean, a lot of prevention, you're going to prevent a fire, but I'm not going to be able to tell you what didn't happen. But some of these things I can say, this was a really good incident of why it's good for us to be out there. South French Street just had basically a cooking fire. Again, that's a second leading cause. It was a deal where someone was helping them. It was a hoarding condition. Someone was helping them fix the stove and put the thing on wrong. So when they turned it off, it was actually on. And
oh God.
From doing that, though, I actually was able to get that was a pretty simple investigation, but I also found it's one of those houses on South French Street that it has a basement, but you wouldn't know it if you looked at it. So I went on my first due, and that's another thing that I'm putting on there. I put a basement symbol on it. So that's what's nice about having it in residential. Some of the commercial we can pre-plan, but I'm doing the same thing on the residential burn permits. If I look them up on the county, and if it looks like there's a basement, I'll put that little tag on there. Or I also put on there, like you'll see at Warm Beach, I do a distance mark and say, well, there's no hydrants anyway, but this driveway is 1,000 feet. So, which is something I never had, or it wasn't 1,000-foot driveways in Everett. So it's amazing, especially the Warm Beach area, because there's Marine Drive, and then You go to the bluff, and that's where the house is. So, Diva Nails. That was a really interesting one, just because you went in there. It's an older fire alarm system. The Knox boxes on that building, a lot of them are Marysville's because they used to cover it. There's an old fire alarm system in there that just said water flow from the Dollar Tree, but it's a conventional system, so it was somewhere between the Dollar Tree and like 4 buildings down. So Marysville got there first. It was in the Diva Nails suite, and they actually went right by it when they were looking. It was kind of a cold smoke situation because they were still thinking Dollar Tree. Well, they finally made entry in there and put the fire out pretty quickly. But I was looking around, and something was off about it. There was actually, at some point, they had done some work in there, and there was no sprinkler head in that spa room. So the fire grew in this little room.
Oh, geez.
But then the overheads, because there's sprinklers up above the ceiling, because it's combustible above, that kind of kept it at bay and still put it out. I'll show you the pictures. It's kind of cool how that happened. So I brought the building official in there, and he was like, oh, somebody did some unpermitted work. That happens all the time. But if you look at the building official, they don't do anything until someone comes in for the permit. So we can go out there and find it and send it back to them to. I don't say that this is how you fix it. I say you go to Kevin and submit plans and tell us, make this code compliant again. So,
And this is where, when you guys ask the question, why would someone want to do a self-inspection program? This is why you would not want to.
that, yeah.
Because there's things that we see that he's pointed out in each one of these fires that firefighters will notice and bring forward back to the building official. So that's just to complement Steve's
Yeah.
discussion point.
So yeah, and that whole shopping mall, we'll have to go over it, but all that is B&M. So Diva Nails will just get a letter. Actually, Arlington, I don't know if Arlington has started, but when it does, they'll get a letter saying, "Are you code compliant?" Oh, yeah, pretty good, and send that back in. And then 3 years later, maybe go check and see if they're out. So it's just a system that's possible. It's probably not the best system, but
No,
that's where we're going right now.
not a good.
That
And
was
it's their
kind of
choice.
it. What's that?
And it's their choice. I mean,
Right.
the city has the choice to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's there in NFPA as far as low order B's and M's are thought, and it comes from the statistics that they have less fires and less fuel load. You can go to every 3 years on them, and I still think it's determined. We'll see what happens. That was it I had. I just wanted to explain a little bit about fire investigations because we actually had a few. I got to do a lot of them in my previous place, so it's kind of fun to get the reps again because when you don't do it much, it's like riding a bike, but still you got to get the reps in. So I wanted to thank you, and I did put a couple pub ed things in here. We had Dave there at the 9/11 over in Arlington, and then Doug there driving the engine for the Rotary Parade. We've been involved in a lot of pub ed for August and September, and it was pretty good. So that's all I have for you, and thank you very much.
Thank you,
you.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Interesting. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. And we have a resolution regarding PNC lease. Who's speaking
So
to that?
Randy, are you or Doug gonna take the PNC lease?
Good evening, Randy Crum, Finance Director. You'll recall a couple months back, we already brought this topic before you, and you approved us to go ahead with the staff's recommendation of leasing the 2 vehicles or apparatus. The lending company, PNC, came back to us and said, hey, can we get an official resolution stating the same thing that you've already approved? So staff's just coming back to you tonight to ask you to formalize your decision in the format of a resolution.
Okay. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll move to approve and authorize the commission secretary to sign resolution number 10092024-01.
And a
I'll second.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
That looked like that was it.
Okay. The next item is new business, and we have the Fire Department 21 update. What?
Yes, Holly.
What? I
Just back to that one, just a curiosity question. Is leasing it, if we make the decision to buy it, is the money that we put into the leasing, does that go towards buying it?
No, we've already approved the leasing and it's a zero buyback, so it's a 7-year lease. That is just like buying it, just like a car loan, except it's a lease for the 2 fire engines. And we approved the lease over buying it last, or 2 meetings ago.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Holly. Okay, let's see.
Fire
So-
District 21, thank you, Commission. I gave you, as part of the packet, a synopsis of a request for proposal. Chief Schmidt sent us a request for proposal, I believe, I'll see the date on it, but he sent us a request for proposal a few weeks ago and asked that we reply to him regarding that request by tomorrow or today, but he extended it till tomorrow. I put together a staff report with what I believe the cost of doing this would be. And I won't reiterate the entire part, but what I will say is that EMS is an expensive endeavor and paramedics is even a more expensive endeavor. And along this pathway, we have shared that the cost of providing this service is expensive. So what I've done in this RFA proposal RFP proposal for District 21 is create the salary costs, the upfront costs. We did meet with the local at Labor Management, and in context, they were agreeable to this RFP with some concern, probably the same concerns as we have with any type of RFP. There comes some risk. There's some employee issues when they're away, whether there's issues with discipline. Greg, am I missing anything else from local?
Long-term employment, I guess.
And then long-term employment, and that's, I addressed it in here, that although they're asking for an RFP for 3 years potentially, that we are hiring this group of employees, and the deterrent to them is the upfront cost, because they're paying for these employees. If they went away in 3 years, then they would lose that that benefit. If they came back a year later, we would have to retrain people again. So that being said, I gave you my analysis of what I believe the cost would be, and provided that, and he's already seen the proposal, and I'll let Marilyn speak a little bit to the fact that she's already received an email. Do you want to cover that, Chair?
Sure. Chief Schmidt did reach out to me, and I believe it was last night, he looked at our agenda and he went in and read what the proposal was. And he and the 3 commissioners all agreed that that would not, that the 20% for M&O would not be acceptable. They would not accept that. So that's as far as I know. They just said, if we pass this, they're still not going to accept that. So I don't know if we need to pass it and have more conversation, or do we want to wait and have conversation with them? This has all happened within the last day.
And part of what what he did not contact, the normal path of conversation would be to call the fire chief and have discussion. So I don't have the context. He reached out to the board chair directly, and so I don't have context exactly what that means. But in totality, we had a mediation, and we agreed that there was an inherent 20% M&O cost to providing all of our service. And I don't understand why this is any different than what the mediation agreement was either. Because we have employee costs, we have hiring costs, we have recruitment costs, we have benefit maintenance, we have finance, paying paychecks. I mean, there's a cost to M&O, and we already agreed to that in the mediation, and now he's reached out and said he doesn't agree. my recommendation would be, if you agree to the reply to their request for proposal, that we keep it as is. And if you wanted to give me direction to do something other than include the M&O, then that now would be the time to do that. Or to state that this is our request or our response to the request for proposal.
Do we have any comments?
I'd rather pass it with a statement that this is our answer to the request for proposal rather than start amending it on the fly. I'm also disturbed that he calls our chair of the board at the last minute instead of dealing with the chief, just because that all of a sudden that went outside the normal back and forth parties. But I would just, if our passing this recommended motion, despite his message out of channel to our chair about not finding acceptable, to me at least would let him know that that is our position. Now, this is, you're trying to work it out. You're still, it's not our final offer. It's just that is our position. And if you can work out something else for the ILA, come back and tell us, I guess.
Well, as I state inside of this analysis, is it can't be a cost to our citizens to supplant the funds. So if the M&O is costing us money to maintain these employees, then we should be able to recover that. So
Right.
if I am hearing and seeing the nods correctly, that the direction after the motion is to continue down the road, and he comes back with some valid reason why the M&O is unacceptable to him as his commission, I could bring that back to you.
Right.
Okay.
Would there be, if we agree to move into this ILA, if a 20% figure is a best guess figure, or would something, if we went 1 year and at the end of next year, you find that it's a 15%, or, if there's an adjustment to it, is that?
So it could be evaluated annually or something?
I don't know. That's my question, is that?
The challenge is to quantify what the amount of time that Allison has to take in managing an employee and equal balance of that employee, or the amount of time that each employee goes to Randy. You just can't. And that's why there's an average of what it costs overhead for an employee, and that was brought forward by Chief Eastman, and we validated that, it's probably a little more in our case for 20%, but 20% was probably a good middle point. And then you get into, if there's a legal issue that pops up with an employee at their site, and we're spending more legal time, it went over the 20%, but in the overall averages, it's just not. Then it gets into, if you really try to quantify too deep, then it's amount of time that is being expended to do it. So that's the same reason why we had the challenge with the actual agreement we absorbed through Arlington, is the amount of time it took for staff to implement the cost of that made it an unreasonable process to continue. So we had to come up with a set system to say, here's our cost of service, and here's how we'll do that. And there's not this back and forth of calling Chief Kraske and having these discussions of what calls last or don't last. So.
Any other questions, Al?
Not a question, a statement. That's our proposal in response to their request for a proposal. And he can see if he gets a better deal.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I move to respond to the request for proposal received from Fire District 21 with the estimated cost parameters that, if accepted, would be codified by an ILA by our RFA attorney, Eric Quinn.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
Was that Leonard?
Leonard, yes.
Okay, Leonard. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
And that's our answer for now.
Okay. let's see where we're at. Okay, the next item is an update on Policy 51, Part-Time Firefighter EMT Program. Allison?
Good evening, Allison Jubb, Human Resources Director, and I would like to talk to you about a proposed edit and modification to Policy 51. Policy 51 has really been the program that has enabled us to have a number of, right now, 32-ish part-time firefighters now working. It's a great opportunity for them to learn what it means to be a firefighter. They're often testing at other places as well, and so we're happy to be part of that. It helps us, but it also helps them as well, and it helps overall the fire community and our neighboring agencies. So we want to continue the program. We happen to have some areas of incorrect statements and so forth that really aren't matching our current practice and policy, and a few areas of conflict within the language of the policy itself that we wanted to do a cleanup on. So what you're seeing now is a revision that cleans up Fair Labor Standards Acts, got both of them lined up now. What is the work week? Got them lined up now, and made it a little bit more clear and simple on what it is that's expected of a part-time firefighter, which also then helps. They're new, sometimes are learning what it means to be a firefighter. So having it really spelled out for them helps them understand it and be great additions to our team. It also helps our battalion chiefs and captains as well manage their time, manage their attendance, manage their schedules. So all of that is encompassed in this new policy that I'm proposing, and a significant portion of it is about how do we do preference points testing. So in our current policy, we do have a method for doing the preference points testing, which essentially means if you're working for us and learning skills and spending time with us, when it comes time to do the competitive examination process that results in a list of full-time, people that are qualified to be selected for full-time entry-level jobs, it gives them a chance to have a little bit of a leg up in that test in terms of points that they can apply to their score. This process needs to be modernized. It was not well aligned with what our actual practice was. I think when the policy was changed, there were some opportunities to maybe tighten that up. So we decided to do that now. We have a current posting, a 60-day posting out right now for entry-level firefighter or EMTs or paramedics, as well as laterals. And we wanted to make sure that this was updated and a chance to give our current part-time firefighters a chance to use a new policy to come in and do preference points testing. So this lays it all out. We have a wonderful firefighter who is leading the process of testing. So he's developing that. It's Gabe, I'm going to say his last name wrong, Buonasisi. Sorry, Gabe, if you're listening. And he's leading that process. BC Kuntz has given him some advice and ideas of how he's done it before, and it's great that he's taking the lead on that. So we will be doing some testing, provided that you approve this revised version. We'll be doing some testing coming up in early November for them.
Wow.
To give them some opportunity to get some preference points. And then from there, we will be proceeding with our regular entry-level testing. So excited to have that happening.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this?
How does this compare to the old policy?
So the old policy is listed in here as well.
Okay.
And some of the areas that I just talked about, those are really the differences. The old policy, I think, had some rules that were not quite lining up. So for example, you can't work any more than 48 hours consecutively, and then you can also work 72 hours. That didn't quite make sense, so we wanted to clean that up. So there's some things like that that we modified in it.
Just a clerical thing, when I look at these, what would be helpful is to have the old one and strike out the parts you're taking out, maybe put in red or bold the parts that we're adding in, then I can kind of see the difference.
Carrie and I actually talked about that. This particular one would have so many red lines that we thought it would be more valuable for you to have, here's the old one and here's the new one. It just was going to be...
The formatting was, it was really even just hard to look at.
in typing
Yeah.
Okay.
things in. But we can certainly provide you 3 versions, one that's
No.
redlined, one if you'd like.
That's my preference for going forward if it's
Sure.
easy enough to
Yes.
do. without
Absolutely.
doing
And
more
it is
work
our
for you.
standard You betcha.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I move to approve revisions to policy 51 and substantially the version presented and allow a one-time exception for all current part-time firefighters / EMTs to participate in preference points opportunity testing provided for in the revised policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that one
Okay.
passes.
Thank you.
The next item is our chief's report.
Thank you, commissioners. Randy attended the monthly consortium chiefs meeting to present the cost allocation model that they requested. With 1 year under our belt, we've been able to have a better idea of what the true costs of everything that we're doing are. As you know, when we went through the process before, it was projected on what costs would be. One of the asks was that we take on so that they could justify what they were paying for the rental of the facility through the training consortium, was that we look at it from a depreciation model concept rather than just dividing out what our bond was. So we went back and Randy assisted with a depreciation model that he knows how to do and I don't. I went out to the training center and sat for about 3 hours and listed every building and piece of asphalt and curb, and we put times to it, and we went through, and it did bring down the cost of the use of the facility a bit. So next meeting or the next couple of meetings, you will likely see a fee schedule modification request that we look at for the consortium for that partnership. There was another Snohomish County Chiefs special meeting held to discuss Snohomish County EMS moving forward. That includes cost modifications and ILA changes to increase levels of service for SCIMs, or what will future be SCIMs. And you guys, I know Commissioner Schreiber was on the commission meeting, and I heard they were going to talk a little bit more about that. We've come to consensus, unanimous consensus within the Chiefs Association, that we're all agreeing to push forward one model for some changes. And I think that'll come to fruition here next meeting.
Governments, yeah, before the end of the year.
Yeah, so you'll see that before you guys at our recommendation. Allison and I met with Local 3438 regarding MOUs that address BC and also potential for administrative captains or lieutenants in the future. And we have ongoing discussions about that to address our EMS section. And had some great progress, and we'll see how that works out. We do have an MOU currently ready for the BC EMS temporary position to present. I don't know if Allison sent that out yet, but it is done. Another all-day negotiation session occurred where the RFA provided a what-if counteroffer to the local, and they're in the process of analyzing and doing their part now. And next meeting is October 21st, if I recall. I met with Dr. Corso regarding EMS issues. I wanted to ensure he was aware that, that we had offered him additional funds to assist us in the absence of an MSA, and for his contract above and beyond what that was, because I thought there was a message there that maybe he thought we were asking him to do more for less. And then the second thing, just convey that I was never communicated with this process of between coming to the board and escalating it to the board. We didn't have a discussion. He agreed that that was probably not best practice. Apologetic and in the future would not do that. And then the final thing was I wanted him to know that I did not send a written communication to Dr. K stating that he was not doing his job. And in fact, I would never have offered him additional funding to come and assist us in his contract if I thought he wasn't doing a good job and the crews didn't respect him. I thought we had a really good conversation. I shared potential opportunities in the future of where we might be going. And then from there, I've asked Allison, Jubb, and I'll ask her to step up to provide some context on facts surrounding the MS issue that were stated that I think we need clarity on. So Allison, would you please?
Okay, well, Allison Jubb, Human Resources Director again, and as Chief Cermak said, he asked me to take a look at some of the statements that were made over the course of the last several months and just review to make sure that if there were things that were maybe not the full context or statements that were made where people didn't quite understand what had actually occurred and maybe had a different understanding of what really had transpired, that it would be valuable to clear the air and make sure that some of those facts were put out there. This is not to say that anyone has any bad intentions. I can't speak to people's hearts and what their intentions are. It's really just to say that it's important to make sure that if we're going to resolve challenges that we have, and we all think that there's opportunities everywhere to improve all the time, it's important to start with an accurate understanding, an accurate foundation of, where are we at? What has actually happened before we work to try to figure out solutions? So with that, I'm actually going to hand that if you want to give them to those folks. I'll, you can have this in writing, and I'm not going to cover every single piece, but I thought I would touch on some of the main themes. It's important to know that what I'm talking about in each of these items, I'm sort of compiling various meetings and comments together, whether they be public discussions or other questions and comments that had occurred. So I'm not intending to quote anything here. This is really just about the themes that emerged and really more data on some of the additional context or facts in there. So the first one was about the MSA leader job descriptions and the posting. And some of the comments were about irrelevant coursework and certifications and so forth that were being required. And the reality is that's a process. And just so you know, as an HR person, I think we need to collaborate with the people that are the experts in the area. I don't know how to do everyone's job. So really looking to the hiring managers or the leaders in those areas to give me insights and feedback. And then from there, obviously, when they do a final review, I'm feeling like they're pretty good and we're going to move forward. So I think it's important for people to know that this was not a case of, HR or Carrie or anyone just kind of coming up with stuff, but there is a process and a methodology to coming up with what we think. And hey, guess what? Sometimes we put things in and we realize later if we want to make a change. That's okay too. So the second item, and please stop me if you want me to talk about any item in more detail. The second one was about that, I think questions around that there was an intention assumed behind having a director level as opposed to just the assistant chief level, and a sense that introducing a director level in some way demonstrated that the North County administration was somehow devaluing what the role of the MSA leader. And in fact, the purpose and the reason which we actually put in the job description and in the job posting was we wanted to create an opportunity where an internal person could actually meet the bar and get in the door into that MSA leader role, as opposed to just being bypassed because they didn't meet the minimum quals. So the intention, I know it's a little outside of the box maybe for folks if they haven't seen that type of a structure before, but really the intention was to provide an opportunity for somebody internally to get in and actually grow with the job and be an assistant chief as opposed to a director over time. The next one, several times in kind of August, September timeframe, and in multiple different venues, have heard that the leader position has been vacant for over 6 months. In actuality, the position was vacated May 31st. And so 2.5 to 3 months at the time that the statements were made, again, just giving information and clarity, not saying, you got it wrong. So it's just saying, okay, here's the facts. And it doesn't mean it doesn't feel like it's been vacant a long time, but the reality is it actually hasn't been. so we'll keep plugging away and going through our processes. The next one is the question of that, and I think Chief spoke to this a little bit around how we're. Is there a question? Sorry, I heard something. Nope. Okay. How were Chief Krosky and Chief Cermak engaged in the process? And I think there was a communication that said, look, we're tired of asking. This is my words. We're tired of asking. We've tried to get help and we're trying to get help. So we're going to come forward to the commission. So I can only speak to my experience. I've been here since March, so I don't know. And I'd have to defer to Chief Krosky and Chief Cermak to talk about what were the ways in which people were kind of, coming forward and saying, help us, we need help with these things. In my experience, I started in March of this year. I was engaged in a meeting in late April, so April 23rd, I think a meeting maybe just prior to that to prepare for that. And that was a meeting in which Dr. Corsa and some employees came forward and said, we've got concerns. And I respect that, and I really appreciated that they did that. And at that meeting and then afterwards, Chief Cermak said, we're handling this, or some words to that effect. This will be handled, I think was the words. So action took place immediately. Obviously, we don't talk about things that are, personal and so forth, but I just want you to know and to have it clear that not necessarily everything is, out in the open. But when we did hear the issues, action did take place. And then the other was, that I'm aware of, again, I don't know if any other conversations happened, was the resignation of the two MSOs. So I don't know what happened prior, because I think there was a lot of frustration on their parts, at least was I listened to, I think they were sincerely frustrated and in both what I read, but also what they shared with Chief Cermak and I. So I don't know what led them to the point of feeling like they weren't being heard to resign. I just know that when that resignation happened and went directly to commission, that Chief Cermak and I right away said, okay, we're gonna have a conversation with these people, and then we met with them each and talked through and listened to what they had in terms of concerns. And actually that is what led us to having then some conversations in our management proposal to add more staff, add something that would help address the administrative burden that the MSOs were really talking about, and how the administrative work that they had to do while on shift, while having to respond to calls and so forth, it just wasn't feasible anymore. It just wasn't doable. And it was really having a toll on them, personal lives and so forth. So we heard them. That's what led to the response. And again, I can't speak to any other conversations where they may have, talked to either of the chiefs about their concerns in advance before they made that decision. Then the next item, again, briefly, the pay and benefits offered for the MSA position are not competitive with the market. There's a lot of layers to this. One is that North County did do a pay study in, I believe it was 2023-ish, 2022, 2023 carrying over. I can't remember the exact dates. That really led to the current pay scale. It is absolutely possible that a pay study results in missing the mark. That a job didn't line up the way that maybe new market data shows, and that's certainly possible. But that pay study was done, and that's what was relied upon in doing the job posting. We also have to work within the policies that the commission has approved, and so that's obviously very important. And part of our policy, our current policy, is to hire within a step one, or higher if approved, or greater, I should say, higher or greater if approved by commission. And so that kind of complicates the process a little bit in terms of how we post. There is, I think there's opportunity for improving and reworking how we do compensation, but we also have to respect what's in place and try to work within the parameters that we have. and be as flexible and adaptable as we can, which is why we went through that reposting process and so forth. So I'm sure that there will be more there, more steps, but just to kind of clarify what we were doing. And it's not, I think the underlying thought was not offering competitive pay may have felt like a reflection of that it wasn't a valuable role to us, that EMS wasn't valuable. And that isn't the case. It's really a case of when we do a market study and the pay is set, then that, and we're operating within that, that's what we are. If we need to make changes in the future, that should be happening anyway for all positions, right? So, so that's the underlying reason there. And then number 6, Dr. Corsa shared concerns that he was not included in the process to select a new MSA leader. And I appreciate that. I mean, as Carrie and I were working on helping Chief Kraske as the hiring manager sort of navigate all the steps and processes of hiring and bringing a panel together and so forth, we did talk about, well, what about having Dr. Corsa and even some of the MSOs be part of this? And I think, and I appreciate the perspective, the call that Chief Kraske made was, look, I already know that they support Matt, and that's a valid thing. And I think his concern, as I interpreted it at the time, was he didn't want to give the appearance of that he's stacking the deck, or those are my words, he didn't say that exactly, but stacking the deck in favor of Matt. He wanted it to be known to be a fair and open process, which meant that he didn't want to have them there. What he wanted was to have other folks in the community. So he did have 2 individuals who came in that we work with that are obviously part of this within the EMS arena, and they provided very valuable insights and information in the interview process. So it wasn't about excluding Dr. Corsa. It was about making sure that we didn't have any appearance of impropriety, but also making sure that we were also reaching out to others in the community. And then another concern that he expressed was that the process was a failed process, and it was 2 failed processes, and that neither advertised through the traditional channels, and I think it means that we didn't advertise in the right places for the MSA leader position. And I can respect that. I'm not sure what all the places are, but what we did do as we went through this process is the job description was approved on the 10th of July, and so Carrie and I had already been working on drafting the posting, as well as creating kind of a template in the background that said, okay, to any hiring manager, we're going to advertise on government jobs, we're going to advertise on WorkSource. What other places do you have? Are there any EMS related and so forth? And so we looked to what that advice and guidance is, and posted accordingly. I don't believe he had any suggestions like for different places besides that, besides the ones that we used. And then posting, the second posting was August 16th to 19th. Again, the same locations. And I think there was an understanding at that point, you may remember, we were bringing forward, because of the first process not working, we were concurrently posting the job with a little asterisk in it saying, by the way, this is subject to commission approval of the job description, and we ran it concurrently while still having not yet received your approval for the job description changes, as well as not having received your approval to post it in a 1 to 7 step as opposed to, that shorter 1 to 2 steps. So we were a little bit, we were moving as aggressively as we could, and didn't want to get out ahead of approvals that we respect. That is the role of the commission to make. But we ran it right up to the concurrent time. And again, I think the idea was that we would have a window of time to allow somebody to come in, apply, and quickly make some interviews. And in fact, they were scheduled for like the next day and a few days afterwards. Very short turnaround for the candidates that we interviewed. Yeah, so there was that. And then the last one he had shared Concerns that that the recruitment process yielded only 2 candidates, one of which would not, only one of which would have met our needs for the MSA leader position. I'm not sure where, how all of the telephone game works sometimes. I mean, that's just the reality is people share information. But I do want to say, number one, I don't share, and their names of applicants for public positions aren't, unless it's a certain levels, aren't public information, so I won't share those. But we did have 2 qualified candidates at the assistant chief level in the first posting, and 1 at the director level. And we interviewed 2, 1 at the director, 1 at the assistant chief, and then obviously offered at the director level. The second candidate wasn't declined due to not meeting, but I think there was a preference to the other person. And then the second posting also had 2 qualified candidates, 1 at the chief level, a different person, and 1 at the director level. So just wanted to clarify and get a little bit of more information out there. And I would just invite people, obviously I'm not going to share things that I can't. I'll just say straight up, I'm sorry, I can't share that information. That's okay. No harm in asking. But also, I think when there are questions and things that don't feel right, I mean, by all means, certainly come and ask me if it's about a process or what have you. I'm happy to talk about it, or bring it up through your union, talk about it. Or obviously, I think there's a lot of opportunity to have gone directly to Chief Kraske and Chief Cermak with concerns, and that's hopefully what happens. So, but I'm happy to take any questions, or if there's anything else that you wanted clarification on or more context, happy to do that.
Quick comment on number 7. I think and this is not to give another assignment. I know you have a ton on your plate right now, but I think it'd be ideal if we had a template for how we post and a list of we post on these 5 sites. We always post for 2 weeks. We always post whatever the range. I realize that's the policy, but a template that lays that out, and we just follow the same thing every time.
Yeah, that's a great idea. In fact, that's part of what we did with this posting is we made a template. We're like, okay, we don't have one, so
we thought it was a great idea.
So we did that. This is what it should include and so forth.
And
Yeah.
just to clarify too, there the 2 references in the notes that you're looking at, it was posted several other places as well. So those were just the 2 that she listed, but it was posted on Washington Fire Chiefs. It was posted on some of the state organization sites, in addition to the obvious, our social media, our internal website.
All of those, yeah.
So it wasn't just those 2.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Al.
You're up. No problem.
The next item is board discussion or commissioner comments. Do we have any?
I just want to thank this last presentation. I mean, the old saying about, hindsight is 20/20. Well, yeah, it is. But there were so many from the last meeting when a lot of the pyramids and others came in, and there were so many wrong statements, false statements, highly inaccurate statements, that it was shocking. I mean, it's been haunting me for the last 2 weeks just trying to think of all the so-called testimony that was given by people who I had to wonder, were they intentionally trying to misrepresent, or were they just that misinformed? I couldn't tell. But I mean, it was not good to us or the organization for that much wrong information to be floating out there. So this effort at clarification over what was perceived by one point and what was actual and all that is a rarity that I can't barely recall in the last 5 years on the board that we've had so to clarify so much stuff. But it was needed, and so I appreciate the efforts that went into it, because it's trying to set the record straight. Nobody on this board is trying to misrepresent, what the facts are behind it, and it's trying to underscore our importance that we elevate to the issue. Anybody trying to say that we aren't listening or that we don't care when they talk, it's just not. That is just not true. And so anyway, thank you. That's all I can say.
Any other comments? Okay, the next item is the good of the order. Does anyone have anything to offer? I hear none.
quick remind, now, it's in, the next meeting in 2 weeks is on the Tuesday, but not on the Wednesday?
The Tuesday
And there's 2 meetings that day.
One is, I believe, at
Budget?
noon or something.
Yeah, one's budget and
And
one's our commission
regular,
meeting, yeah.
Because of the.
Just wanna say that.
Spokane,
Yeah, right, I know why, but I just wanted to repeat that, so.
It's probably good.
Nobody knows of a change to that, right? I mean,
I don't
what
know,
we
I hope
see on
you
the-
all have it on your
yeah,
calendars.
right.
We'll be-
But that's the big reminders.
Thank you, Rob. I
Tuesday is
appreciate
the
that.
day, yeah, Tuesday is the day for
Okay.
2 meetings,
Yeah,
not one,
I'll
and there is
have
no
to-
Wednesday meeting.
No.
Yeah, got it.
Can I just say a quick thank you on behalf of your administrative support team? Teresa and Jen Baxter and Autumn and I spent the last 3 days attending for the very first time the Washington Fire Administrative Support
Oh.
Conference. And it was a really valuable time for us as a team to network with other administrative support professionals and hear from other departments and agencies.
Where was
And
that held?
It was held in Everett this year.
Oh, close
nice.
by,
We weren't
okay.
even aware, we're all members of the, Washington Fire Chiefs Association by our organization positions, but it was a really wonderful conference that
Good.
we all
Excellent.
had lots of good takeaways from. So thank you for the board and thank you for our supervisors for giving us that time to do that.
Thank you for going.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice it was close.
It was very nice that it was close.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay,
Is this my
Can I have-
moment?
a motion, yes.
I'll
great.
make a motion
This
to
is.
adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
You've been waiting almost 3 hours.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good meeting.